Now, let's talk about what's happening in Iran and the US's response. The Trump administration's response has been praised and criticised. It's clear that Donald Trump is backing the protesters, but after he warned the Iranian regime not to kill innocent, peaceful protesters, he hasn't done anything when that has happened. And there's been fairly extensive evidence now of a very horrific crackdown on protesters, reports of thousands being killed. We've seen further sanctions by the US, but no military action. John, how do you see the White House's response to what's happening in Iran?
Well, Rita, it does seem that Trump has backed off in recent days, and I think that probably reflects the fact that it is hard to have a lot of influence if you aren't willing to put soldiers in the field. Now the mullahs have shut off communications, they've shut down the internet and so forth. They apparently have gone on killing thousands of people. They obviously need to go, but whether President Trump is willing to do anything further to get rid of them remains to be seen.
It's also interesting that we've not heard much from Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's been unusually quiet throughout the last couple of weeks with the uprising. Same with China. And Jamie Siddle writes in news.com that there's a new player on the block, US President Donald Trump. He's unpredictable, he's brash, he's upending every expectation, and that's unbalancing every global axis. Now, do you agree that that is in part why the Ayatollah's regime is on the brink of collapse? And can that collapse happen independent of some sort of assistance from the US?
Rita, there's no doubt that Trump's encouragement has helped to spur on these protests, which we all fervently hope will bring this horrible Iranian regime finally to an end. But one thing we've seen historically, Rita, is that tyrannical regimes can hang on for a long time after they're seemingly dead in the water. Cuba is a good example of that, a totally discredited government, but still there after 85 years. And so we hope that these public protests and so forth will bring down the mullah's regime. But at this point, we really don't know. We've got to wait and see.
And before you go, this is the first chance I've had to ask you about the astonishing events, the astonishing feat of the Trump administration to remove the Venezuelan dictator Maduro. That operation, I think, is something we'll talk about for years to come, decades. And it wasn't just about drugs or freeing an oppressed population, was it, John? But and I think it's more than about just seizing control of all that oil. It was about weakening America's foes, particularly China.
Yeah, that action has had some really interesting consequences in the international scene. You know, the Russians knew that the mission was coming. They pulled all their people out, but they didn't tell their Chinese ally. And the Chinese were meeting with Maduro like
Yes.
hours before he was arrested by the Americans. And in China, that reportedly has raised some serious questions about their alliance with Russia and how solid it really is. And it's also revealed Chinese weakness in the New World, especially because China has pledged eternal solidarity with Maduro. But when the time came, they couldn't actually do anything. So, yes, seizing the oil and cutting off that supply of oil to China does hurt China economically. But there are reports that China's leaders are also reassessing their foreign strategies as a result of what happened in Venezuela, including their alliance with Russia.
Yes, very interesting indeed, because China has become reliant on that oil, and it's also become reliant on the oil from Iran. Most of Iran's oil ends up in China, so that's going to put considerable pressure on Beijing. John Hinderaker, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time tonight.